Despite the deficiencies in mainstream Christianity, I have never regretted my choice to become part of a Pentecostal church in 2001. Focusing on the Holy Spirit and spiritual gifts within Pentecostalism has significantly enhanced my spiritual journey. The lively worship, passionate prayer, and emphasis on spiritual encounters have enabled me to cultivate a profound and intimate bond with my faith. Nevertheless, it has also resulted in what I would describe as doctrinal confusion, due to the widespread uncertainty surrounding the topic of the Holy Spirit in mainstream Christianity. At times, the emphasis on the Holy Spirit made it feel like he had replaced Jesus. At other times, it enhanced our love for Jesus. Other times, the litmus test of who had a genuine spiritual experience and who was a genuine Christian was their ability to speak in different tongues. At other times, it was being slain in the Spirit. And to top it all off, no one could explain the Holy Spirit like you could explain Jesus. The Spirit was just some nebulous being we felt and sometimes experienced, but knew little to nothing about. It is fair to say being a Pentecostal was the best time of my life, but it was also very confusing. When you believe in unbiblical doctrines, God sometimes has a funny way of waking you to the truth. At Ansgar University College, I came in the doors as a typical average Pentecostal, believing we Pentecostals had rediscovered the gifts of speaking with other tongues, and tongues with spiritual gifts were the genuine proof of being filled with the Spirit. I was very convinced in my beliefs, but soon the foundations of my unbiblical Pentecostal identity would be shaken. I was deeply shaken when my professor shared with me the surprising information that even Satanists were known to speak in tongues. It felt as though the very foundations of my beliefs were being challenged, as if he was suggesting that the existence of God and the reality of Jesus and the cross were in doubt. Despite the discomfort I felt upon learning this, I couldn't ignore the evidence he presented. His compelling proof left me questioning my own convictions and grappling with the unsettling realization that perhaps there was more to this than I had previously considered. When my professor also shared with me that there were individuals in other religions and faiths who performed genuine miracles, it deeply troubled me. I'd been taught that the genuine evidence of being filled with the Holy Spirit was the ability to speak in tongues and perform miracles. According to my understanding, if a person possessed these abilities, they had successfully met the criteria for being considered a genuine, Spirit-filled Christian. My first reaction was that those people in other religions who talked in different tongues and did miracles were either deceived, possessed, or lied. I quickly rejected the last option because I could not accept that so many people lied. I also promptly dismissed the idea they were possessed and deceived because that seemed unreasonable to me. So I had only an explanation left, and that was, I did not understand how a Satanist could be able to talk in other tongues and do miracles. And sometimes you don't understand everything that happens. But soon, the Holy Spirit would open a new door in my life. When I came to Ansgar University College, I believed Jesus came to start a new religion called Christianity. So, in my mind, Jesus, who was born a Jew, broke with everything Jewish and founded the church at Pentecost. I also believed he was the only one at his time who performed miracles and raised people from the dead, and his miracles were proof of his mission to launch Christianity. I believed this because I was told this was biblical truth. One day, my professor told me about Jewish holy men who lived simultaneously with Jesus. My professor proved that they went about healing people, raising the dead, and doing the same things as Jesus, even though they were Jews who lived by the Torah. I had great difficulties accepting how a Satanist in our day and age could speak with other tongues and perform miracles. However, I had no problem accepting as a historical fact that there were others at the time of Jesus who did the same miracles who were not Christians. But this would compel me to reconsider most of what I believed in as a Pentecostal. I would have to ask myself, was Jesus a Jew who came to launch a new religion? Or was he a Jew who came to bring Israel and all who worshipped Israel's God back to the Torah and their identities as Jews? Considering the historical evidence, he did not come to launch a new religion. This would explain why other Jews who lived by the Torah could do the same miracles as Jesus. I then had to ask myself, what would be the litmus test for a true Spirit-filled man or woman according to Jesus? The Gospels made it easy to see that the answer was not tongues and miracles, but a life lived following the Torah. But if the litmus test is a life lived by the Torah, how then can a Satanist who wants nothing to do with the Bible or the Torah be able to speak in other tongues and do miracles? As a mainstream Christian Pentecostal, everything was very black and white. You were either saved or unsaved. And if you were unsaved, you were full of sin and headed straight for hell because of your sinful nature. And because God can't have anything to do with sin, considering He is holy, someone who is unsaved could never have a piece of God in him. With this worldview, you can't explain how a Satanist or anyone who is not a Christian can speak in other tongues and perform miracles. I already knew Jesus did not come to form a new religion, so I asked myself, how would Jesus the Jew understand the doctrine of the sin nature? To make a long story short, the answer is that he would not agree with it. As a Jew, Jesus believed we have a dual nature, not because of the fall, but because that is how God made us. And he believed we have a free will to use our dual nature the right way or the wrong way. The wrong way would be to choose to break Torah. But using it the wrong way would never change the fact that you are still made in the image of Jehovah, gifted with a piece of God in you, whether you are a Satanist or a Muslim. And because you have a piece of God in you, you have gifts He gave you, which you use incorrectly. But even so, He is allowing you to continue to use those gifts. And that is why a Satanist or someone who is not a Christian can speak in other tongues and perform miracles. Does this mean tongues and spiritual gifts are for today? Nothing in the Bible supports the idea that tongues or spiritual gifts are not for today. But as I learned, they are not the litmus test of who is a spirit-filled Christian. The litmus test is a life lived by the Torah who loves the Torah. Such a spirit-filled Christian will always speak in other tongues and operate in spiritual gifts.